Well, hello, that's me again. Today is July 22nd, 2025, and what you see in the beginning is essentially Russia continuing to run out of missiles and loitering munitions and UAVs and things of this nature. So these are primarily strikes at the industrial plant in Kiev and around. It's in this particular case, these two segments are primarily Kiev, but there are all kinds of other cities in Ukraine which are getting it, and so that will continue, and in fact, it will increase. And but I decided to make today a video which we would tentatively can call, well, let's call it headlines, okay? And this is not a Saturday Night Live headlines, or Jay Leno headlines for that matter. Those who remember who Jay Leno was, which was one of the best late night show hosts. And so we will start with something which, it's a painful question. I know, as always, there will be. I need to extend here, put forward here this disclaimer. I do not do the broad brush, paint over, for example, over German people, and especially when I know that obviously their overall mood and social state, so to speak, of Eastern Germans, former GDR, German Democratic Republic, differs quite dramatically from their main Germany, which is the West Germany, which is the majority population lives there. They as well might be the different nations for all intents and purposes. But let's put it this way, because I need to approach it somehow and somehow explain what is going on. Let me put it this way. Russians are not stupid, okay? Some people do. I mean, I will explain to you how, what, for example, Ben Hodges thinks about it. For example, if you go and listen to what Mr. Ben Hodges says, and we know he's American general. It's essentially a meme nowadays, American general, and he talks about that Russia is about to, collapse. So what can I say? Yeah, you see, he tells about it that, of course, Ben Hodges knows everything about war. He never saw one, but I mean, he knows. He's a graduate of the US Military Academy and went through all those war colleges. And he says that the collapse of Russia has just begun. Key points in summary. Vladimir Putin's colossal error in Ukraine is setting the stage for a potential collapse of the Russian Federation, mirroring the Soviet Union decline after its disastrous war in Afghanistan. Well, Ben Hodges is American general. That means he doesn't understand war. He doesn't know military history. He obviously doesn't know the Soviet war in Afghanistan, and it had nothing to do with collapse of the Soviet Union. But I mean, what do I know, really? And so, as you can see yourself, they state that according to the author and analysts like retired Lieutenant General Ben Hodges, Putin's refusal to compromise is driven by petulance, not strategy. So it's projection, obviously, because most of the American generals are petulant children, essentially. But I want to start, which also has a lot to do with the United States, also has a lot to do with the situation with the Europe, and that Russians, far from collapsing, they understand that at some point of time Europe will be mobilized, or rather conformist Europeans, which is majority of population. The French are like that, Germans are like that, very many people in Italy are like that. If you look attentively at the polls, public opinion polls, who they think they are, so they will be whipped up into this frenzy, which is already happening, and they will want to march on, on Russia again. So, and I'm not, exaggerating here. And I want to bring you this reminder. Do you remember I spoke and I showed you this photo many times? This is T34, pardon me, T3485 in Germany. At that time, German Democratic Republic, and it's basically what it says is, please liberate us again. It was in 1990s, just they asked Russians to get the hell out of Germany after Germany was unified. So Russians obliged. And so they liberated Germany in a sense that they abandoned it, so left it alone to its own device. It got unified, and Germans wanted, just to have no Russians around, which is understandable. You don't want to be occupied and things of this nature. So yeah, but after the 1990s, everything has become clear about Europe and Europeans. Make no mistake. And again, I want to forward this disclaimer. I'm not talking about all European people, but majority is. And suddenly, Russians understand that they, at some point of time, will have to deal with aggressive and Russophobic, in the extreme, Europe. And as the result, we have this statement by Mr. Lavrov. And this is a very important strategic turning point. Suddenly, Mr. Lavrov comes out today, and he says that Lavrov said that Europe has poorly learned the lessons of history. He talks that the lessons of history should not be forgotten, but they are clearly poorly learned by the current generation of Germans, French, and representatives of other European countries. He drew attention to the fact that the militarization of Europe is taking place under the pretext of an alleged threat from Russia. The Russian foreign minister also noted that son is not responsible for his father. However, if the descendants realize the criminality of past actions, it is important not to repeat these mistakes. Why does he remind all this? The clue is in the press conference of Maria Zakharova, a spokeswoman of the Russian Foreign Ministry, and it is a wowzer. This is the most poignant and most stunning speeches of Maria Zakharova probably ever. And I strongly suggest to all of you, go there and listen to those, whatever, 10 minutes or what have you there, of this speech. And Zakharova talks about Germany. And it's 8 minutes. If you go and listen during her press conference, and the title, you can see yourself the caption, which says, "We forgave them for torturing people and children, killing our civilians, but we never forgot." And she talks to Berlin and to German people. Save yourself from another catastrophe before it's too late. And this is a stunning warning, and this is the warning of the impending, which is coming. I don't think Europe is capable, or Europeans, let alone Germans, are capable of learning anything, and they will continue to vote, they will continue to support those crazes, most of whom are, scratch German politician, you get either SS or Wehrmacht, guy. And so basically, and again, you have to go there and see and hear what she says and how she says it. Will there be a war in Europe? There will be a war in Europe. It's already kind of, we see what is happening with Ukraine. But the reason Zakharova talks about to save them from catastrophe, and she reminds them, of course, about under the guise of democracy, Herr Hitler came about, and then National Socialism reigned. And guess what? Yeah, Germans probably didn't want to do it then either, but guess what? They did it anyway. And we all know how it all ended up with the catastrophe of the unimaginable scale, the worst war in the history of humanity. Well, obviously, Germany has nothing to do in terms of its capacity and mobilizational abilities with the Third Reich. But as I already stated, Europeans will be, which is already happening, it's in the process, whipping up into this Russian hating hysteria, and they will be ready to go and get what they think is theirs. They're those resources, those subhumans, Untermenschen from Russia sit on the third of the world resources, while those excellent and unique Europeans have to suffer from whatever they voted for. So it's very simple. It's always like is everybody, always somebody else is guilty. Somebody else has to bear responsibility for the choices which those people in Europe make. And Germany is, of course, at the center, together with those French guys who, for some reason, consider that they are so irresistible and incredible. And why this is important? Well, the reason it is important because, as Ivan Zakharov stated and Mr. Medvedev stated, next time something happens, like, for example, Germans want to continue to provide aid to crumbling Ukraine, this time Mr. Oreshnik will be visiting Germany. And many people say, and you know what, well, you can go and even I'm pretty sure there will be a lot of discussion in the comments under this video, but what's going to happen? NATO, Article 5 and all that? No, nothing is going to happen. Russia will simply flatten Europe, I mean, if it comes down to it. And again, as I already stated, many people still do not recognize this is not 1939. This is 2025. And if Europe will somehow think that it, considering extremely low level of the military expertise in Europe, and especially the losers from Wehrmacht who wrote most actually documents, doctrines for NATO and in the United States, for example, then yeah, they are, well, Ben Hodges is there, or General Keynes or Kellogg's, who have no clue about the real war. And once they will get things burning in their motherland, so what? Will France attack with nuclear weapons Russia? France will cease to exist, like at all, completely. It will be gone. There will be probably the lake, huge lake, or maybe the adjacent part to Mediterranean Sea, if they decide to do so. So, is war in Europe possible? Absolutely it is possible. How probable it is? I don't know, considering the fact that, as I already stated, extremely low professional level of the NATO militaries and its pathetic officer corps, and we can say it clearly now, will they believe that they can do something stupid to provoke this, and maybe for those elites, elites obviously quote unquote, I mean, to continue to be in power? Well, there's no difference between social democrats and Christian Democrats in Germany, Christian CDU. There's no difference, really. I mean, they hate Russia. I mean, profound. It's visceral, it just... So, and they want revenge. What is called revanchist forces. Well, they will try. And Russia will have to respond. Obviously, their armies will be destroyed, and, well, who knows? Many people say that, oh, you cannot say this with, in such nonchalant, manner. Well, you know what? As I already stated, Berlin didn't have the stones rearranged for a long time, and evidently they learned absolutely nothing. They learned absolutely nothing. And so, as Mr. Zhukov, Marshal Zhukov, well, in his exchange with Marshal Rokossovsky in Berlin in 1945, stated that we liberated them from fascism and they will hate us for that. This was prescient, and this is absolutely what is happening right now. Europe wants to fight Russians, and it will get their fight, and it will be obliterated without even the use of the nuclear weapons. Although, of course, Russians can use nuclear weapons if need be, and then Germany will cease to exist together with German nation, if it comes down to it. So Zakharov's warning is about saving themselves. Germans will not save themselves. They are incapable of doing this, and I don't know what is going on there with Germans. I mean, this is evidently some imbecilization and cuckoldization of the nation, which, yeah, that's who they are, and they will disappear one way or another. There is only basically two ways. Either they declare war on Russia, or Russia basically wipes out European forces, and Germany together maybe with France, and then Germans are done, or they will be done on a slower, so to speak, tangent, if you wish, or whatever, the gradient, if you wish, for those people who know what I'm talking about in terms mathematically, because they will be, they already been dissolved to the third world immigration, and they can run around and, shake those, fists and try to pretend that they can control it. They can't. So they are being basically substituted with the third world immigration. And what can I say? Is it sad? Yes, it is sad. But let's take a look at now what this might be in terms of the possible European war. And always keep in mind, keep an attention on some things which seem not very significant, but they speak a lot about what is going on. While everybody discusses how Russians are producing this enormous amount, for example, of UAVs, we can go and take a look at very important article which gives us insight into Europe's idea about war. Here it is. There is a news, so yesterday. So they talk about the Turkey nears preliminary deal for Eurofighter combat jet order. Sources say, okay, that's fine. Turkey, we know that Turks have issues with F-35 of the United States, but then again, Turks probably more or less practical people, and they know that F-35 is basically, it's a joke, essentially. It's flying lame duck. So they go back to the good old Eurofighters. And they say that Turkey could announce a preliminary deal for a multi-billion-dollar order of Eurofighter Typhoon fighter jets as early as this week. Typhoon is a pretty decent combat aircraft, make no mistake. It's obviously not a Su-35, but it's definitely decent aircraft, and well, it carries pretty much all kinds of the knockoffs, European knockoffs of air-to-air missiles, of course French work out, some other missiles, which supposedly long range. Obviously, they don't have R-37 and what's coming next for Russians, but you can understand why Turkey, for example, goes and wants to actually buy the Eurofighter. After a flurry of orders in 2000, the Eurofighter has more recently been overshadowed by Lockheed Martin F-35, which has so-called stealth technology. Good. I like that they say that so-called, because obviously this stealth technology is one of the biggest fads and one of the biggest BS, let me put it this way. This is not to say that you shouldn't have the, physical field reduction technology or reducing technology, and stealth being, trying to reduce the range of the detection in the radio diapason is obviously important. Nobody says that it's not important, but obviously this, looking at F-35 and supposedly, it's so stealthy, well, it's not. It's very well seen by the onboard radar, such as, for example, Su-35's Airbus, so it's, And that has seen its makers trying to win domestic orders, and those from countries that can't buy F-35. Evidently, as we know, there was a quarrel between Turks and United States, especially related with Turks buying the S-400s, and so they were kind of, squeezed out of the F-35 program. So they want to buy now this Eurofighter. But let me show you something which is critical here. This is very important. And so, as you can see yourself, if Turkey places an order, Eurofighter will have to ramp up its production to 30 Typhoons a year, and other potential buyers might grow concerned at the prospect of being last to receive the aircraft. The person said, which of course, anonymous source, Eurofighter can build 14 jets a year and is trying to increase that to 20. They will have to increase it to 30. And do not forget, many of those countries which buy those Eurofighters are not even NATO countries, such as Qatar, for example. And as the result, what do we have? Consider the, minuscule production capability for European Rafales, and then you have this Eurofighter. As I already stated, a Eurofighter probably is the better plane than F-35. Not probably, it is the better plane, but yes, it's also getting obsolete. It's obviously is not designed to fight in the modern battlefield, let alone against such combat aircraft as Su-35 or let alone Su-57. But it is still a good aircraft. But if you take a look, if you think that those guys who are producing now 14 aircraft a year and whatever, they're 5, 6, whatever, maybe 10 Rafales they produce, yeah, this is not the Air Force you want to go in and fight against Russians, whose rate of production of the variety of the combat aircraft, ranging from obviously Su-35s to Su-57s to Su-34s, is amazing, and it's going to be ramped up if need be. So this is what you get, and this is a very good indication and index, if you wish, of the production capability of Europeans. And yeah, Germany offering the Patriots to Ukraine is basically, yeah, in the nearest years, but they want to provide them with more of money, something like $9 billion or whatever, in euros, who cares? And so, yeah, we have this absolute hustle happening in Europe. And yeah, as I already stated, considering the stupidity of the NATO officer corps, their strategists, you know, and look, you remember I showed you Mr. Now the chief of the general staff or inspector general of the Bundeswehr, 2 days ago. Yeah, what do you expect? And now we have Ben Hodges, Kins, and all those Kellogg's, for example, as Mr. Kellogg, you know, visited this, you know, Ukrainian factory, which is not there anymore, by the way. And they show him how they produce all those drones. Mr. Kellogg will not understand the first thing about drones and the tactics of its use. And but what can I say? The Pentagon discredited itself completely by buying this BS, which was provided to them by the Ukrainian military and intelligence services. So, and as the result, we have what we have. And if you listen attentively to my conversation with Colonel Daniel Davis yesterday, we discussed it, that Pentagon is scratching the bottom of the barrel in terms of its stores because they simply gave up everything, and NATO is being demilitarized as we speak. So, and speaking of which, if we go, for example, and look at the numbers today, yesterday actually. So as you can see yourself, in terms of UAVs, those drones, they continue the Ukraine, or whatever is left of it, they try to hurl as many as possible, 397, most of them have been shut down, some got through, like few, I mean one handful of them, 5 or 4, so some of them killed people in the bus. They attack for some reason civilian targets. Yeah, this is what NATO does primarily, they are good only at that. Fighting war, not so much. Russians scored another Patriots, and in terms of Patriots, they were talking about, I believe these were 7 launchers and 2 radar. So it pretty much, that means it's 3 of the complexes are gone. So yeah. And the numbers speak to themselves. And Le Monde goes out and 2 days ago, and they talk about that. Yeah, look at this, new military cemeteries planned throughout Ukraine, and they talk about, Le Monde talks in this article that essentially, well, what Ukraine says about its losses, visually it's not even supported. And the squares reserved for the soldiers are full everywhere. Teams of architects are working on memorials that tell the story of the scale of the slaughter, as well as the ongoing reflection of the idea of the nation. Well, let's start with this thing. France supports Ukraine. France supports Nazis. It's French, habit. That's who they are. And again, people are full of themselves, but I will explain why. But they talk about, that even Le Monde, which is a globalist in neocon, essentially, rag, they still, talk about that there are horrendous numbers of those graves. And yeah, if you think that I'm exaggerating a little bit about this, them supporting Nazis here, I want to remind you this thing. This is one of the boards in Ukraine, and 80 years, of the fight, with Brody, well, essentially Bandera SS division have been wiped out by Red Army. So, but you see, the board says that yesterday, today you. So there you go. This is very democratic and wonderful, Ukrainian armed forces. And this is who West supports. There's no denial of this anymore. And they support Zelensky regime, which is essentially a Nazi regime. And yeah, what can I say? Everything isn't clear now, and going back to Mrs. Zakharova and essentially Lavrov, they are preparing essentially the informational support for what possibly is coming. And again, it depends how fast Europeans will be coerced, but they will be coerced. As already stated, there is no really healthy forces there anymore. And no matter what you say, it just Europe does it all the time. It did it for well, essentially 1,000 years with the Russians, and so what can I say? So meanwhile, Bloomberg. They talk about, and again, Bloomberg, take any American rag, establishment rag, there are no military specialists. There are no people who have clue about military or warfare, including their essentially advisors who were, some credentialed military and all that, but no. So, and they talk about that Ukraine war risks turning into Trump's Afghanistan debacle. Well, I have news for people from Bloomberg, and again, it's Bloomberg. They are, mentally retarded people there. So that no. Afghanistan is nothing compared to this debacle, which is unfolding right now for the United States, including. But it's Trump's war. He wanted it. He owns it now, and it is his debacle. But it's going to be much worse than any Afghanistan. And actually, I want to stress, which I spoke about it before, and I wrote about it before, that Biden's order to leave Afghanistan, as granted, executed horrendously badly. I mean, it had geopolitical and military meaning, at least in some sense. But no, the scale of what is happening right now, oh my God, Afghanistan is nothing. It just pales in comparison. And but people in Bloomberg, they do not understand. The only thing they know is that the template thinking, rigid one, they try to apply some templates which are not applicable. And this is how actually NATO military think. And that's the only thing I can explain to what Mr. Donahue, he is now Supreme Commander, Allied Commander, or whatever the forces in Europe, the guy who commanded 82nd when they were leaving Afghanistan. And he was the guy who planned, together with Aguda and other Wiesbaden people, this catastrophe in, counteroffensive in 2023. That tells you everything about qualifications of those people. They are amateurs. And Russians are openly now mocking them and laughing at them. I'm talking about professional military, because, I mean, how long can you continue to, maintain at least degree of the corporate solidarity until they want to kill you, but they do it in such a way that, only moron can plan that type of things. They are the products of Pentagon. They are the products of the Western militaries. This is how good, quote unquote, they are. That means what? They are amateurs in terms of the modern operations. And that is why it will be a catastrophe for Germany. It will be a catastrophe for Europe. And as many people say, and yeah, let's put it this way. Many people, I do not share their point of view, but they say just, make the Germany just simply disappear as the nation, unified nation. I'm totally against this, but at some point of time, Germany will get it together with France and all those Italies. And what can I say? Those people, again, they have no clue what they are getting themselves into. And to conclude, a little bit. It's American training. That's the School of Americas. They're really cool guys. I'm pretty sure they wear this camo and specs. Those glasses are all from Louis Vuitton and Versace. And Hugo Boss. They're all very fashionable and cool looking guys. But Pentagon doesn't know what real war is. And and of course explaining to these guys, as you can see yourself, what fire impact is, let alone fire productivity. Yes, there is such thing which is called productivity, fire productivity, when you deal with the combined arms operations. And so a group of Latin American mercenaries tried to leave their positions in Alexandrovgrad less than a day after they transferred due to massive strikes. And so, according to the Russian security forces, the mercenaries left the settlement in panic, moving chaotically and on anything. The law enforcement agencies stressed that the foreigners were well equipped, but there was no trace of bravado. Of course, this is not fighting the narco cartels, with the small arms, well, RPG most, also, somewhere in jungles. No. This is fighting the best army in the world, which even, they should praise the Lord and, go to their, whatever they believe in, into their churches and put those candles for God blessing them with not meeting Russian stormtroopers. Those guys would have been absolutely all dead with zero losses for Russians. But there it is. That's how they have been trained, and they wanted safari. Boy, this is when the hunter becomes the hunted, and boy did they run away. This is the type of the action which is happening right now, and this is what's going to be happening to Europeans when they decide to do this stupid thing. So, well, what can I say? This is everything I wanted to tell you today about those headlines. I obviously could have spent another 2 hours talking about this and that, but as usually, I want to basically limit my communications with you to 30-35 minutes, because after that people begin to lose focus and they forget things, which is normal. I forget things all the time. So, in conclusion, I want to thank my wonderful patrons again. I cannot express it and stress it enough. It is because of you that I'm in this line of business, and you guys, my essentially, the support I have, and I really appreciate this great time. Big time. I cannot express my gratitude to you. So, but in the end, as always, those who like what I do, please subscribe to my channel, and those who can afford, please support me on Patreon or buy me a coffee. Too. And that will be it for today. Have a nice rest of the week, guys. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.